The shuttle screamed through the atmosphere of 7, trailing fire and smoke. Inside the cockpit, Sung fought with the controls as alarms blared around him. The ambush had come from nowhere, catching his reconnaissance team completely off guard. Now he was the only one left and his ship was dying. "Come on, hold together," he muttered through gritted teeth. The ground rushed up to meet him faster than he wanted. He pulled back on the stick with all his strength, trying to level out the descent. The shuttle clipped a rocky ridge and spun wildly. Sung's head cracked against the console and everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, pain shot through his entire body. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. He was hanging sideways in his harness, the shuttle tilted at a dangerous angle. Smoke filled the cabin, making him cough. He hit the release on his straps and fell hard onto what used to be the side wall. Every movement hurt, but he was alive. Sung grabbed his rifle and medical kit, then kicked open the emergency hatch. The cold air of 7 hit him immediately. The planet was a wasteland of red rocks and dust, with a sky that looked perpetually angry. In the distance, he could see the remains of his squad's other shuttles, scattered and burning across the valley floor. He climbed down from the wreckage and took stock of his injuries. Broken ribs, definitely, possible concussion, various cuts and bruises. Nothing immediately fatal, but bad enough. He pulled out a stimulant injector from his kit and pressed it against his neck. The chemicals flooded his system, pushing back the pain and exhaustion. That was when he saw the other crash site. About half a kilometer away, partially hidden behind a cluster of rocks, was another vessel. It was elegant, sleek, nothing like the brutal functionality of human military craft. Sung recognized the design immediately. One of the alien empires that humanity had been cautiously negotiating with for the past decade. He approached carefully, rifle ready. They were still out there somewhere, and he had no idea if they would be friendly or hostile. As he got closer, he could see the ship had taken massive damage. Its hull was torn open, and bodies lay scattered around the crash site. There were tall beings with crystalline skin that reflected light in strange patterns. These ones were all dead, their crystals dark and lifeless. Sung moved through the wreckage, checking for survivors. He found several crew members, all beyond help. Then, deep inside what looked like a protected chamber, he heard something. A weak cough, followed by labored breathing. He pushed aside a collapsed bulkhead and found her. A female, younger than the others, dressed in elaborate robes that were now soaked with blue blood. Her crystalline skin, which should have shimmered with inner light, was dim and flickering. A large metal shard protruded from her chest, surrounded by spreading black veins that looked like poison. Her eyes opened, focusing on him with difficulty. "Human," she whispered in perfect English, her voice musical despite the pain. "You should not be here." "Neither should you," Sung replied, kneeling beside her. He pulled out his medical scanner and ran it over her body. The readings made his stomach sink. "You are hurt badly. That shard is coated with something toxic." "Poison," she said, coughing. Blue blood flecked her lips. "They ambushed my diplomatic vessel. I am HFY, daughter of Empress Bin. I was carrying important information to your people about the plans." "What plans?" Sung asked, already pulling out surgical tools. He had to try to remove the shard, even though he had no idea about biology. "They are building a weapon," HFY said, each word clearly painful. "It targets specific DNA patterns. They plan to use it on both humans and, at the Peace Summit next week, everyone will die." Sung stopped, looking at her. "How many people will be at that summit?" "Thousands, all the leaders, all the diplomats. It will destroy any chance of alliance against the—" She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "You must warn them. Take my data crystal. It has all the proof." He shook his head. "I am not leaving you here to die." "You must. I am already dead, human. The poison has spread too far. Even if you could remove the shard, I would die in minutes. Medicine cannot cure this, and we are light years from any medical facility." Her eyes dimmed further. "Please, save our peoples." Sung looked at his scanner again, running different diagnostic modes. His jaw tightened as he saw something. There might be a way. My scanner shows that human blood has compounds that could neutralize the poison in your system. Our biology is similar enough that a transfusion might work. Haewon shook her head weakly. No, you do not understand. A direct blood transfusion between our species is forbidden. It creates a bond, a permanent connection. Our life forces would link together. If I die, eventually you die too. If you are killed, I would follow. You would sacrifice your freedom, your independence, everything, for someone you just met. Sounds like a bad deal, Sung admitted. He looked at the data crystal in her hand, then at her dying face, then back at his scanner. He thought about the thousands of people at the summit. His commanding officer Wu would be there. His sister back on Earth. All those lives snuffed out by a weapon. He thought about his friend Min, who had died in the shuttle crash just hours ago. Min always said that a soldier's job was not just to fight, but to protect, to make the hard choices when no one else could. Sung pulled out a transfusion kit from his medical supplies. Tell me how to do this properly. You cannot, Haewon protested, but her voice was getting weaker. The bond is irreversible. You would be tied to a dying alien princess for the rest of your short life. Maybe, he said, setting up the equipment. Or maybe we both live long enough to warn everyone about the weapon. Either way, I am not letting you die here alone. Now tell me the procedure before you pass out. Haewon looked at him for a long moment. In her eyes, he could see disbelief, gratitude, and something else. Respect, maybe. She began speaking, explaining the ritual words that had to be said, the precise way the blood needed to be mixed, the meditation techniques that would help their bodies accept the change. Sung followed her instructions exactly. He removed the shard as carefully as possible, then connected their bloodstreams through the transfusion tube. The moment his blood entered her body, they both gasped. It felt like lightning was running through his veins, like his entire nervous system was on fire. Haewon's crystalline skin began to glow brighter, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The black veins of poison started to recede, pushed back by something in his blood. But the process was violent. Sung could feel his body changing, adapting, merging with something completely alien. He could sense Haewon's thoughts at the edge of his mind, her pain becoming his pain, her fear mixing with his determination. They spoke the ritual words together, their voices blending into something that was neither fully human nor fully. The bond snapped into place like a lock closing, and both of them screamed. Then everything went black and Sung collapsed beside the alien princess, their blood now forever mixed. Sung woke to the sound of his own heartbeat, except it was not just his heartbeat. There was another rhythm underneath it, slightly faster, definitely not human. His eyes snapped open and he sat up too quickly, making his head spin. The cave around him was dark except for a soft blue glow coming from somewhere nearby. The memories flooded back. The crash, the dying princess, the blood transfusion. He looked down at his hands and saw faint traces of crystalline patterns under his skin, visible only when he moved them in the light. They faded after a moment, but he had definitely seen them. "You are awake," a voice said from the shadows. Haewon emerged into the dim light and Sung almost did not recognize her. She still had her crystalline features, but there was something different about her. Her skin had a warmth to it now, a slight pink tone underneath the crystal that had not been there before. She moved more heavily, less gracefully than he expected from her. "How long was I out?" he asked, his voice rough. 3 days, she replied. "I dragged us both into this cave system after the bonding. They have been searching the area constantly. I could hear their patrols passing overhead." 3 days. Sung checked his supplies by instinct. They were running low on everything. His rifle was still functional, at least. He looked at Haewon more carefully. "You look stronger." "I feel strange," she admitted, sitting down across from him. "Your human characteristics are affecting my biology. I am heavier now, denser. I need to eat more frequently. But I also heal faster than before, and I feel stronger than I should." She held up her hand, and he could see the same thing he had noticed on himself: human skin patterns flickering under the crystal surface. Sung stood up and immediately felt dizzy, but underneath the dizziness was something else, a sense of where Haewon was even when he closed his eyes. He could feel her worry, her curiosity, her discomfort with the changes in her body. "This is the bond," he said, not really asking. "Yes, we are connected now. I can sense your emotions, your physical state. You are in pain from your injuries, but you are also stubborn and determined to ignore it." She tilted her head. "Very human." "And you are scared but trying to hide it behind royal dignity," he shot back. "Very princess-like." They stared at each other for a moment, then Haewon looked away first. "We need to leave this planet. They are hunting for survivors. My bodyguard might have escaped the crash, but I cannot risk trying to contact her. The monitor all communications." Sung nodded. "My people wrote me off as dead. Standard protocol after a crash in hostile territory. We are on our own." He began checking his equipment systematically, soldier habits taking over. "How much do you know about combat?" "I am trained in diplomatic strategy and political maneuvering," Haewon said stiffly. "I am not a warrior." "You are now," he replied. "Because those patrols you mentioned, they will find us eventually. When they do, we need to be ready to fight." The next few hours were tense. Sung tried to teach Haewon basic combat movement, while she tried to teach him about technology and the layout of military structures. The bond made it easier than it should have been. When he showed her how to hold a weapon, she understood not just through his words but through the muscle memory that leaked across their connection. When she explained the political situation between their peoples, he grasped the nuances in a way that simple words could never convey. But it also meant they could not hide anything from each other. Sung felt her frustration when she could not move as quietly as he wanted. Haewon sensed his impatience with her formal way of speaking. Their personalities clashed constantly, made worse by the fact that they could feel each other's irritation in real time. "You do not need to treat me like a fragile ornament," Haewon snapped after he tried to help her over some rocks for the third time. "You were dying 3 days ago," he pointed out. "Forgive me for being careful." "I am not dying anymore. I am bonded to a human warrior who apparently thinks everyone needs his protection." She pushed past him stubbornly, then immediately stumbled on loose gravel. Sung caught her arm, and the physical contact made the bond flare. For a moment they both felt everything: her embarrassment at needing help, his worry that she was still too weak, her determination to prove herself, his respect for that determination. They let go quickly, both unsettled by the intensity of the connection. That evening they heard the patrol before they saw it. Sung pulled Haewon into the shadows of an overhang, both of them freezing in place. 6 soldiers moved through the valley below, their armored forms looking like insects in the dying light. They carried heavy weapons and scanners, searching methodically for any signs of survivors. Sung could feel Haewon's fear through the bond, but also her anger. These were the beings who had killed her crew, who had poisoned her and left her to die. He put a hand on her shoulder, steadying her, and felt his own calm flow back through the connection to her. They stopped directly below their position. One of them was scanning the area with sophisticated equipment. Sung calculated the angles, the distance, the number of shots he would need if they were discovered. Beside him, Haewon was doing the same thing, he realized. She had no combat training, but through their bond, she was drawing on his tactical knowledge without even trying. The scanner beeped. The commander looked up toward their hiding spot. Time seemed to slow down. Then one of the other called out, pointing at something in the opposite direction. The commander turned away, and the patrol moved off, their heavy footsteps fading into the distance. Sung and Haewon both released breaths they had been holding, but the moment of danger had triggered something between them. The bond had deepened during those tense minutes, their survival instincts merging into a single purpose. They looked at each other in the darkness, both realizing that they had been thinking as one unit, not 2 separate people. "That was unexpected," Haewon whispered. But useful, Sung admitted, if we can coordinate like that in an actual fight. They did not have to wait long to find out. The next morning, a smaller patrol surprised them while they were gathering water from a spring. There were only 3 soldiers, but they were heavily armed and they opened fire immediately. Sung dove behind cover, returning fire with his rifle, but something incredible happened. Without any discussion, without any plan, he and Haewon moved in perfect synchronization. She went left while he went right, both of them instinctively knowing what the other would do. When he popped up to shoot, she was already providing covering fire with a weapon she had taken from the crashed ship. When she needed to reload, he was already stepping forward to draw the enemy's attention. They were good fighters, professional soldiers, but they had never faced opponents who could predict each other's moves perfectly. Sung felt Haewon's perspective overlay his own vision, seeing the battlefield from 2 angles at once. She felt his combat instincts guide her movements, her body responding with skills she had never learned. The fight lasted less than 2 minutes. When it was over, all 3 soldiers were down, and Sung and Haewon stood back to back, breathing hard, both amazed at what had just happened. That was, Haewon started. Incredible, Sung finished. Through the bond, he could feel her exhilaration mixing with his own, her surprise at her own capabilities, her growing understanding that they were becoming something more than just 2 individuals tied together. They took the communication device and weapons before moving on. As they walked, Sung noticed that they had started matching each other's stride without thinking about it. Their breathing had synchronized. Even their heartbeats were starting to align. The bond is getting stronger, Haewon said quietly. Is that bad? He asked. She was quiet for a moment. I do not know. My people's history speaks of bonds like this, but they are rare, legendary. Those who were bonded became great heroes or terrible villains. They were never just ordinary people again. Sung looked at the barren landscape of 7, thought about the weapon that would kill thousands if they did not stop it, thought about how impossible their survival seemed. I think we stopped being ordinary the moment we shared blood. Haewon touched the place on her chest where the poisoned shard had been. The wound was already healing, faster than it should. Perhaps you are right, warrior. Sung, he corrected, if we are bonded, you should use my name. She smiled slightly, the first real smile he had seen from her. Then you should call me Haewon, not princess. As night fell, they found shelter in another cave and planned their next move. Somewhere above them in orbit, there might be a way off this planet. Somewhere ahead of them, they were gathering their forces. And somewhere deep inside both of them, the bond was growing stronger, changing them in ways neither fully understood yet. The abandoned research outpost looked like a skeleton rising from the red dust of 7. Its towers were broken, its walls crumbling, but Haewon assured Sung that there would be working technology inside. They built things to last, even when abandoned for decades. They approached carefully in the early morning light. Sung's military training screamed at him that the outpost was too obvious, too perfect as a trap, but through the bond, he could feel Haewon's certainty. She had studied the history of this region as part of her diplomatic education. This facility had been a scientific station before the wars started, and it would have databases, communication equipment, maybe even a way to contact passing ships. We need information, Haewon said quietly, feeling his hesitation through their connection. Right now we are running blind. We do not even know where the nearest spaceport is, or if there are any rescue operations in this system. She was right, and Sung knew it. They had been surviving for almost a week now, moving from cave to cave, avoiding patrols, but they could not run forever. Eventually their supplies would run out, or they would get lucky, or they would make a mistake. They needed a plan that was more than just survival. The outpost's main entrance was sealed, but Haewon placed her hand on the access panel. Her crystalline skin glowed slightly, and Sung felt a strange tingling through the bond as she interfaced with the ancient security system. The door groaned and slid open, revealing a dark corridor filled with dust and shadows. Inside, everything was covered in years of neglect. Equipment lay scattered across tables, papers and data crystals were strewn about, and the air smelled stale and dead. But when HFY activated the emergency power, lights flickered on throughout the facility. Backup systems hummed to life, and suddenly they were standing in a working laboratory. Sung kept his rifle ready while HFY moved to the main computer terminal. Her fingers flew across the controls with practiced ease, accessing databases that had been dormant for decades. He watched her work and felt something strange through the bond. Pride. Not his own pride, but hers. She might not be a warrior, but this was her battlefield. This was where a princess trained in diplomacy and strategy truly shined. Found it, she breathed, her eyes widening as data flooded the screens. The research files. Sung, you need to see this. He moved beside her, looking at the alien text that his mind somehow understood now, another gift of the bond. The files contained biological research data, genetic sequences, weapon specifications. And as they read deeper, the terrible picture became clear. They had been planning this for years. They had collected DNA samples from dozens of species, including humans, and they had engineered a biological weapon that would target specific genetic markers, activating only when it detected the right combination. The weapon was designed to be deployed as an aerosol at the upcoming Peace Summit, where all the major species would be gathered in one location. Within hours of exposure, everyone infected would die. Within days, the plague would spread to their home worlds. This is genocide, Sung said flatly. They are planning to wipe out entire civilizations. Not just genocide, HFY replied, scrolling through more data. Look at this. After the major species are eliminated, they will move in to claim the abandoned territories. They are not just killing us. They are clearing the board so they can rule everything. The scale of it made Sung's stomach turn. He had seen war, had fought in battles that killed hundreds or thousands, but this was different. This was calculated extinction. How long do we have? The summit is in 6 days, HFY said. If we do not warn them. She did not need to finish the sentence. Through the bond, he felt her horror, her desperation, her determination to stop this no matter the cost. A sound from outside made them both freeze. Footsteps. Light, quick, definitely not. Sung raised his rifle and moved to cover the entrance. HFY stayed at the terminal, downloading all the data they had found onto a portable crystal. The figure that appeared in the doorway was tall and graceful, with crystalline skin that shimmered like HFY's. She wore combat armor and carried energy weapons that hummed with deadly power. When she saw HFY, her eyes widened in shock. Princess, the newcomer breathed. Then her gaze shifted to Sung and her weapons came up instantly. Step away from her, human. Stop, HFY commanded, stepping between them. He is with me. With you? His voice was full of disbelief. Princess, I have been searching for you for days. I saw the crash site. I thought you were dead. And now I find you with a human warrior. Her eyes narrowed as she looked more carefully at HFY. Your biosignature is wrong. You have human DNA mixed with your own. What has he done to you? He saved my life, HFY replied simply. I was poisoned, dying. He gave me a blood transfusion. We are bonded now. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. His weapons did not lower. Bonded. You allowed a blood bond with an alien, with a human. Princess, do you understand what you have done? Your mother will be devastated. The court will call for your exile. You have tied yourself to a species we barely know and to a warrior no less. I know exactly what I have done, HFY said, her voice firm. Through the bond, Sung felt her strength, her certainty. And I would do it again. We have bigger problems than court politics. They are planning to kill everyone at the Peace Summit. Every human, every species that opposes them. We have the proof right here. She held up the data crystal, looked at it, then at HFY, then at Sung. He could see the conflict on her face. She was a bodyguard, trained to protect the princess above all else. but she was also a soldier who understood duty and threat assessment. "Show me," finally said, lowering her weapon slightly. They spent the next hour going through all the data. Sung watched her expression grow darker as she realized the scope of the plan. When they finished, she looked at both of them with new respect. "This changes everything," she said. "If this information is accurate, we need to get off this planet immediately. We need to warn the Empress and the human leadership." "That is the problem," Sung said. He had been working on the outpost's communication array while they talked. "Both our governments have written us off as casualties. No one is mounting rescue operations in territory. It is too risky." He pulled up the communication logs he had recovered. "I managed to contact a human intelligence officer named Sora. She confirmed that my entire unit is listed as killed in action. As far as Earth Command is concerned, I do not exist anymore." "And I was declared lost with all crew," Haywan added. "My mother held a memorial service 3 days ago. We are ghosts. No one is coming for us." Was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders and touched her fist to her chest in a military salute. "Then we get ourselves out, the 3 of us. We find a ship, we escape this cursed planet, and we deliver this information to the summit ourselves." "The nearest spaceport is controlled by the," Sung pointed out. "Then we take a ship from them," replied. Her warrior's grin was fierce. "I did not survive that crash and 6 days of hiding just to give up now." Sung felt a strange sensation through the bond. Haywan was amused, proud, and relieved all at once. Despite her bodyguard's shock at the bonding, was still loyal, still ready to fight. Over the next few hours they planned. The outpost's databases had maps of the entire region, including the location of a military base with a small spaceport. It was heavily guarded, but it was their best chance. They would need to move fast, strike hard, and hope that the bond between Sung and Haywan gave them enough of an edge. As they prepared to leave, Sung pulled Haywan aside. Through the bond, he had been feeling something growing between them, something that went beyond just shared survival. He could access her memories now, catching glimpses of her life in the court, her years of diplomatic training, her complicated relationship with her mother, the Empress. And he knew she was seeing his memories too. His childhood on Earth, his military service, his reasons for becoming a soldier. "This is strange," he said quietly, "knowing someone this completely." "Yes," Haywan agreed. She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. "I understand you better than I have ever understood anyone. Your loyalty to your friends, your commitment to protecting others, your willingness to sacrifice yourself for people you have never met. These are not just human traits, Sung. These are you." "And you," he replied, "are not just a princess. You are intelligent, brave, and stubborn. You refuse to let circumstances define you. Even when faced with death, you were thinking about saving others." They stood there for a moment, 2 beings from different worlds who had been forced together by desperation, and were discovering they fit better than either had expected. Interrupted the moment. "They are moving patrols through this sector. We need to leave now if we want to reach the spaceport before dark." They gathered their weapons and equipment. The data crystal with all the evidence went into a secure pouch on Haywan's belt. Sung checked his rifle one more time, making sure it was fully charged. Activated her energy blades, the weapons humming with barely contained power. As they left the outpost, Sung looked at his 2 companions. A princess who had become a warrior through necessity. A bodyguard who had never stopped searching for her charge. And himself, a human soldier who had made an impossible choice and discovered it might have been the right one after all. The base waited ahead of them, heavily defended and full of enemies. But for the first time since the crash, Sung felt something other than grim determination. He felt hope. The ancient orbital elevator stood like a monument to a forgotten civilization. It rose from the planet's surface thousands of meters into the sky, disappearing into the clouds above. The structure was older than any of the current spacefaring species. built by beings who had vanished long before humans or even had left their home worlds. But it still worked after a fashion, and it was their only way off 7. Sung, Haewon, and crouched behind a rocky outcrop, watching the forces that surrounded the elevator's base. There were at least 40 soldiers visible, with heavy weapons emplacements and armored vehicles, more than the 3 of them could handle in a straight fight. "This is suicide," said bluntly. "Even with your bond making you fight like demons, we are outnumbered 10 to 1. "We have no choice," Haewon replied. "A smuggler named Dahl has a ship in orbit. Sora, the human intelligence officer, arranged it. If we can reach the elevator and get to orbit, Dahl will extract us, but we have to move now. The summit starts in 4 days. Sung studied the positions through his rifle scope. They had set up a kill zone around the elevator entrance, overlapping fields of fire that would cut down anyone who approached. But they were focused on ground-level threats. They were not expecting an attack from someone who understood their tactics. Through the bond, he felt Haewon analyzing the same defensive setup. Her diplomatic training had included military strategy, and her mind worked differently than his. Where he saw firing lanes and cover positions, she saw patterns and weaknesses in how they had arranged their forces. Their thoughts merged, creating a tactical plan that neither could have made alone. "There," they said simultaneously, pointing to the same spot, a gap in the coverage where the terrain made it difficult for them to position weapons effectively. Looked at them both, then shook her head. "That is disturbing. You even speak at the same time now." "The bond is getting stronger the longer we are together," Haewon admitted. "But it gives us an advantage. We can coordinate perfectly." "You will need more than coordination," a new voice said from behind them. They spun around, weapons ready. A human man stood there, wearing battered combat armor and carrying weapons that looked like they had seen serious use. He was older than Sung, maybe 40, with scars crossing his face and arms. Behind him were 3 more figures, 2 humans and something that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bear. "Easy," the man said, raising his hands. "I am Wu, used to be part of the same unit as you, Sung. I was on the 4th shuttle when we got ambushed." Sung's eyes widened. "Wu, I saw your shuttle explode. We all thought you were dead." "Almost was," Wu replied. "Got thrown clear before the impact. Been hiding out with other survivors ever since." He gestured to his companions. "They have been hunting everyone who crashed here. Humans, even members of species I have never heard of. We have been fighting a guerrilla war for the past week, staying alive any way we can." One of the other humans, a woman with short black hair, stepped forward. "I am Bora, engineer. When Wu told us what you were planning, we knew we had to help. That elevator is our only way off this rock too." The alien creature made a sound like rocks grinding together. Wu translated. "This is. He says his people will remember humans and as allies if we succeed. If we fail, well, we will all be dead, so it will not matter." Sung looked at Haewon. Through the bond, he felt her making rapid calculations. More fighters meant better odds, but it also meant more people to protect, more variables in the plan. She met his eyes and nodded slightly. They were thinking the same thing. This was their best chance. "All right," Sung said. "We do this together, but we need to move fast and hit hard. Once we start, every on this planet will come down on us." They spent the next hour preparing. Wu's group had salvaged weapons and explosives from various crash sites. Bora had technical skills that complemented Haewon's knowledge of alien systems, and the others brought raw fighting power and a burning desire to escape this planet. The attack began at sunset. Bora triggered a series of explosions on the far side of the elevator base, drawing half the forces away from the entrance. The moment they moved, Sung and Haewon led the charge through the gap they had identified. The bond made them devastating. They moved like they were 2 parts of the same organism, each knowing exactly where the other would be. When Sung leaned out to fire, Haywan was already covering his exposed side. When she needed to reload, he stepped forward to draw enemy fire. Their movements were so synchronized that they could not predict their next action, because even they did not know what they would do until they did it together. Fought beside them, her energy blades cutting through armor with brutal efficiency. Wu and his team provided covering fire, their weapons creating a corridor of death that they could not cross. Charged into the enemy line like a living tank, scattering soldiers and breaking their formation. But they were professional soldiers, and they adapted quickly. Heavy weapons platforms swiveled toward the attacking group. Armored vehicles moved to block the elevator entrance. An officer, his armor marked with command insignia, directed his troops with calm precision. "That one," Haywan gasped, pointing at the officer. "He is commander. I recognize him from the intelligence files. He was in charge of the diplomatic vessel ambush." Commander saw them too. His eyes focused on Haywan, then widened as he recognized her. He barked orders in the harsh language, and suddenly every gun was turning toward the princess. "They want you dead," Sung said, pushing her behind cover as energy blasts tore through the air where she had been standing. "They want us both dead," Haywan corrected. Through the bond, she was accessing his combat experience, learning how to fight in real time. She grabbed a fallen weapon and returned fire with increasing accuracy. The battle became chaos. Bora managed to hack into the elevator's control systems, getting the massive doors to grind open. Wu took a hit to his shoulder but kept fighting. Roared and charged a heavy weapons team, destroying their position but taking multiple wounds in the process. Commander moved through the battlefield towards Sung and Haywan. He carried a large energy weapon, and his armor made him nearly invulnerable to their small arms fire. When he spoke, his voice was amplified and filled with cold amusement. "The bonded pair," he said in perfect English. "Did you really think we did not know about the ancient protocols? The blood bonds that your primitive ancestors used to unite your tribes. We have been watching for signs of such bonding for years. You are dangerous not because you fight well, but because you represent something our masters fear: unity between species." He fired, and Sung barely pulled Haywan out of the way in time. The blast melted the rock where they had been standing. "The Dominion will rule this galaxy, but we cannot do that if inferior species learn to work together. That is why your bond must be destroyed. That is why you must die here, as an example to others who might try to follow your path." Commander advanced, his weapon charging for another shot. Sung's rifle was nearly empty. Haywan's stolen weapon had overheated. They were out of options. Then Wu appeared behind the commander, carrying something that looked like a mine. "For everyone who died in the shuttles," he said quietly. He activated the device and dove at Commander, tackling him. The explosion was massive. It threw Sung and Haywan backward, their ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, Commander's armor was cracked and sparking. Wu was gone, just gone, vaporized by the blast that had saved them all. "No," Sung shouted, but there was no time to mourn. The explosion had destroyed the heavy weapons platform, and the elevator doors were fully open now. Bora was screaming at them to move, that the structure was destabilizing from the battle damage. They ran, all of them, the surviving fighters scrambling into the elevator as soldiers regrouped and opened fire again. Was the last one in, dragging a wounded with her. The doors began to close, but they were damaged and moving slowly. Commander, somehow still alive inside his shattered armor, pulled out a smaller weapon and aimed at the elevator's control panel. If he destroyed it, they would be trapped inside a metal coffin with no way up or down. The bond between Sung and Haywan flared with desperate energy. They both felt it at the same moment, a connection not just to each other but to the ancient elevator itself. The structure had been built by beings who understood bonding on a level that modern species had forgotten. It responded to their unified will. They reached out together, not with their hands but with something deeper. The elevator's systems came alive in ways they had not functioned for centuries. The doors slammed shut just as Commander fired. His shot hit the closing door and ricocheted away. Then they were rising. The ancient machinery groaned and shuddered, but it lifted them toward orbit. Through the transparent sections of the elevator shaft, they could see seven falling away beneath them. They could see the forces scrambling, see the devastation of the battle, see the red planet that had nearly become their grave. But the elevator was not stable. The battle damage combined with centuries of neglect meant that systems were failing all around them. Warning lights flashed. Metal screeched. The entire structure began to sway. Sung and Haewon stood in the center of the elevator car, their hands clasped together. Through the bond, they poured everything they had into the machine. Their combined will, their determination to survive, their desperate need to warn their peoples about the coming genocide. The elevator responded, drawing on power sources that should have been dead, stabilizing itself through sheer force of their bonded consciousness. The others watched in awe as crystalline patterns spread across Sung's skin, and human warmth flushed through Haewon's form. They were glowing now, both of them, with a light that was neither fully human nor fully but something new. "Hold on," Haewon whispered. "We are almost there," Sung replied. And together, bound by blood and will and desperate hope, they rode the ancient elevator toward the stars. The elevator broke through the upper atmosphere with a shudder that threatened to tear it apart. Sung and Haewon maintained their connection to the ancient machinery, willing it to hold together for just a few more minutes. Around them, the other survivors held on to anything they could find as the entire structure shook violently. "There," Bora shouted, pointing through the transparent sections of the shaft. A ship hung in space nearby, small and battered but beautiful to their eyes. That must be Dahl's smuggler vessel. The elevator car finally ground to a halt at the orbital station, its mechanisms screaming their last. The moment they stopped moving, Sung and Haewon collapsed, their energy completely spent from maintaining the bond with the elevator. Caught Haewon before she hit the floor, while Bora steadied Sung. "Are they alive?" someone asked. "Yes," replied, feeling her princess's pulse. "But they are exhausted. The amount of power they channeled through their bond, it should have killed them both." "Bonded pairs are stronger than you think," a new voice said. A man appeared at the station's airlock, human with the look of someone who had spent too many years in space. He wore a patchwork flight suit and carried himself with the casual confidence of someone who had faced death more times than he could count. "I am Dahl, and we need to leave now. They detected the elevator activation. They have ships incoming." They carried Sung and Haewon aboard Dahl's ship as the others filed in behind them. The vessel was cramped and smelled of recycled air and old engine oil, but it had weapons and a functional hyperdrive. Dahl sealed the airlock and ran for the cockpit, his hands flying over the controls. "Strap in," he called back. "This is going to be rough." The ship lurched away from the dying orbital station just as fighters arrived. Energy blasts lit up space around them as Dahl pushed his vessel to its limits. He was a skilled pilot, threading through debris fields and using every trick he knew to avoid the pursuing ships. But there were too many of them. "I cannot outrun them all," Dahl admitted, sweat running down his face. "We are going to have to fight." Bora moved to the weapons console. "I can handle guns. Just keep us alive long enough for me to target." The battle in space was different from the ground fighting, but no less desperate. Dahl's ship danced between enemy fire while Bora took careful shots at their pursuers. Despite his injuries, managed to reroute power from non-essential systems to the shields, watched over Sung and Haewon, ready to defend them if any managed to board. In their unconscious state, the bond between Sung and Haewon deepened even further. Their minds drifted together, sharing not just thoughts and feelings but their very essences. He experienced her childhood in the palace, the pressure of being royalty, the loneliness of duty. She lived through his memories of Earth, of choosing to become a soldier, of losing friends in battles across the stars. When they woke hours later, they were in hyperspace. Dahl had managed to lose the pursuit and jump to safety. The ship was quiet except for the steady hum of the drive. Sung and Haewon sat up slowly, looking at each other with new understanding. They were still two separate people, but the line between them had blurred significantly. "We are alive," Haewon said softly. "Barely," Sung replied. "How long until we reach the summit?" "2 days," Dahl called from the cockpit. "I am pushing the engines as hard as I dare, but you need to know something. I have been monitoring communication channels. Both your governments are saying you are dead. If you show up at the summit claiming they are planning an attack, they might think you are spies or—" "Then we will make them believe us," Haewon said firmly. "We have the data crystal with all the proof. We have the biological evidence of the weapon in my own body, from the poison that nearly killed me. And we have each other as proof that bonding between species is possible." The next 2 days passed in tense preparation. They rehearsed what they would say, reviewed all the evidence again and again, and tried to plan for every possible response. Sung cleaned his weapons and wondered if he would need to fight his own people to get them to listen. Haewon practiced the formal speeches she would need to give to the court. Through it all, the bond kept them balanced. When Sung's doubts threatened to overwhelm him, Haewon's determination steadied him. When she felt fear about facing her mother after becoming bonded to a human, his courage flowed through their connection. They emerged from hyperspace at the Neutral Summit Station, a massive orbital facility where dozens of species had gathered to discuss peace and trade. Dahl's battered ship looked out of place among the sleek diplomatic vessels, but their credentials, by Sora who had been working behind the scenes, got them docking clearance. The moment they stepped off the ship, security forces surrounded them. Human soldiers in combat armor, guards with energy weapons, officials from half a dozen other species, all demanding to know who they were and what they were doing at a closed diplomatic event. "I am Princess Haewon," she said, her voice ringing with royal authority. "Daughter of Empress Bin of the Empire. I was declared dead, but I survived. And I bring information critical to the safety of everyone at this summit." "I am Sung," he added, standing beside her. "Special Operations Terran Defense Coalition, also declared killed in action, also very much alive. And if you do not listen to what we have to say, thousands of people are going to die in the next few hours." The guards did not know what to do. Their commanders were called. Those commanders called their superiors. Within an hour, Sung and Haewon found themselves in a secure briefing room facing some of the most powerful people in the galaxy. Admiral represented the human military. He was a hard man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. He looked at Sung like he was seeing a ghost. "We have your death certificate, soldier. If you are really Sung, prove it." Sung recited his service number, his unit assignments, the classified missions he had run. He told Admiral things that only the real Sung could know. The Admiral's expression slowly changed from suspicion to shock. On the other side of the table, Empress Bin looked at her daughter. The ruler was tall and regal, her crystalline skin pulsing with inner light, but her eyes were full of pain. "Haewon, is it truly you? I mourned you. I held services. How?" "A human warrior saved my life, mother," Haewon replied. "At great cost to himself. We are bonded now. I know that brings shame to our family, but it was the only way to survive. And what we learned while trying to get back to you, it changes everything." Ambassador Nam, representing Earth's diplomatic corps, leaned forward. He was a careful man, used to weighing words and watching for deception. "Bonded? You mean a blood bond? That is supposed to be impossible between different species." "It is possible," Haewon said, "and we are living proof. But we did not come here to discuss biology. We came to warn you. They are planning to deploy a biological weapon at this summit, today. Within hours, everyone here will be infected and die." She placed the data crystal on the table. This contains all the proof, research data, weapon specifications, deployment plans, everything you need to know that we are telling the truth." The room erupted in arguments. Some believed them immediately. Others thought it was propaganda or an elaborate hoax. The debate might have gone on for hours, except that security teams following up on Haywan's information found it, hidden in the station's air circulation system. A biological weapon, exactly as described in the data crystal, set to deploy in 3 hours. The summit was evacuated immediately. Bomb disposal experts from multiple species worked together to safely contain the weapon. Security forces arrested several diplomats who had been involved in the plot. The summit did not discuss peace that day. It discussed war, war against the Dominion that had tried to commit genocide. In the chaos that followed, Sung and Haywan stood together in an observation deck, watching both Earth and the visible among the distant stars. Empress Bin found them there. She looked at her daughter for a long moment, then at the human warrior beside her. "You saved her life," the Empress said to Sung. "She saved mine too," he replied. "Many times we kept each other alive." Bin reached out and touched Haywan's face gently. "I was taught that blood bonds between species were primitive, dangerous, something to be feared. But looking at you now, I see something different. I see two people who trusted each other completely, who merged their strengths to overcome impossible odds. Perhaps our ancestors were not wrong to value such bonds." "The court will still object," Haywan said quietly. "Let them object," her mother replied. "You and this warrior just saved thousands of lives. You proved that humans can work together at the deepest possible level. The political value of that alone is enormous. But more than that, you are my daughter and you are alive. That is worth more than any amount of court approval." Admiral appeared beside them, Ambassador Nam with him. The Admiral looked at Sung with something like respect. "The Terran Defense Coalition owes you an apology, soldier. We wrote you off too quickly. Your actions and those of your bonded partner prevented a catastrophe. I am recommending you both for the highest honors our governments can bestow." "We do not need honors," Sung said. "We just did what needed to be done." "Spoken like a true warrior," Admiral replied. "But you will get them anyway. More importantly, you and Princess Haywan have started something. Other species are already talking about the possibility of bonding programs, of creating unified units that can work with the same coordination you two showed. You have changed the nature of alliance building." Ambassador Nam smiled slightly. "We are establishing a new position, joint ambassadors for human relations. Two people who can represent both species because they carry both species within them now, if you are willing to accept." Sung looked at Haywan. Through the bond, he felt her surprise, her interest, her understanding that this was important work. And he felt something else too. After everything they had been through, after nearly dying multiple times, after saving each other and the galaxy, they had become partners in a way that went beyond simple friendship or duty. "We accept," they said together, speaking as one as they so often did now. In the days that followed, the galaxy learned the story of the human warrior and the alien princess who had shared blood and saved civilizations. Other bonding pairs began to form, carefully monitored but encouraged. The alliance against the grew stronger, united by the proof that different species could truly become one. Years later, historians would point to that moment as the turning point, when the galaxy stopped seeing itself as isolated species competing for resources and started seeing itself as a community with shared destiny. And at the center of it, all were two people who had made an impossible choice in a crashed ship on a hostile planet, never knowing that their sacrifice would change everything. Sung and Haywan stood on the observation deck of the new joint embassy, looking at the stars. They were still two individuals, but they were also something more. A living bridge between worlds, proof that unity was possible even across impossible divides. "Do you regret it?" Haywan asked quietly. "The bond, what it cost you?" Sung took her hand, feeling their heartbeats synchronize through the contact. "Not for a moment, you." "Never," she replied. And together, bonded by blood and choice and love that transcended species, they walked into the future they had saved.